This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, West Goshen Township residents. This evening is the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors December 15th, 2020 teleconference starting at 7 p.m. I'd like to start with the Pledge of the Allegiance to the flag. Feel free to stand if you like. Please unmute if you could. Pledge allegiance. Flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Justice.
and justice for all.
Great, thank you. This will be a short announcement about the teleconference meeting, the rules of conduct, and the meeting to be recorded. All right, teleconference meeting instructions for supervisors, staff, and professional services providers. At the beginning of the meeting, we will be taking a roll call for members, staff, and professional service providers present. A roll call of those members of the public present in on the teleconference. Each person speaking shall announce their identity at the beginning of comments. Public comment will be permitted only when specifically requested of the public just before each vote is taken or at the end of the meeting before adjournment. Members of the public shall be muted at all times until the appropriate time for public comment to eliminate background noise. Each item requiring a vote will proceed with a motion and a second, followed by a member comments and questions, only when prompted by the chair, and then second by public comments, questions, but only when prompted by the chair. Voting shall be done by roll call for each member for each vote. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 3, which are the reports for the month of November of 2020. Lieutenant Carroll.
Thank you. So for the month of November 2020, our officers responded to 60 alarms, 4 of which were found to be valid alarms, and 40 accidents. Our officers drove a total of 20,480 miles while patrolling the township. We took particular attention to traffic enforcement on 9 roadways: the Route 322 bypass, Airport Road and Lincoln Avenue, Pottstown Pike, East Market Street and Montgomery Avenue, Boot Road, West Warren Road, and Westtown Road. And in the area of career development, we had our normal monthly Lexipol daily training bulletins as in PA virtual training network, our normal monthly ERT meeting. We finished up our fall firearms training with 5 officers. And myself, Lieutenant Domidio and Sergeant Liss attended the Command Leadership Institute. Officer Graham attended a point shooting class, and Officer Grandizio attended Polex. I also had the opportunity to attend the Chester County Racial Justice Workshop, which was held in Westchester at the beginning of the month. That's the report for the police department. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have some questions. Lieutenant Carroll, soon to be Chief Carroll. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
On the monthly activity report there, the number of vehicular accidents, there's more than a 50% increase from the prior month. Any insight as to why? What's going on? I mean, from last month to this month.
I actually asked that question of the traffic division. The only reasonable response we could think of is that people are getting back on the road after a long time of not being on the road. The speed certainly increased in the time where the traffic was lessened, and now that it's back to where it was, we're leaning that direction. But other than that, there was no specific reason, there was no weather reason that we could come up with.
And there's no engineering measures that can be taken by the police department, putting out road signs that are flashing or something of that sort. I don't know what you may have in your toolkit that may get people to be more aware of what's going on. And I mean, I hear what you're saying, but is there anything that the police department can do proactively to try to try to deal with the situation?
So we do check if any specific location is the cause of more accidents. We didn't come up with anything specific. And when that happens, we obviously attack that area with more traffic enforcement. That we do have signs, we put them out normally as a matter of business, but I can see if they can concentrate those more in other areas.
Okay. I've got 2 more questions. On the monthly assist to and from report, there's a total of 29 specific incidents. Were these all assist to other departments, or were any of these assists from other departments?
So our assist to and assist from, I'm seeing 37 assists to other departments and 22 assists from other departments.
Okay. All right, and my last question is on the number of ambulance calls, 113. I presume these are all from Good Fellowship. Is there any reason why it seems like it's a pretty high number of ambulance calls? Again, any insight into what's going on as to why there was an increase in the number of calls?
I know of a specific location that has seen a sharp increase in calls. And then as a GFAC location, we're aware of it. We've actually scaled back our response to those calls because GFAC has worked out a special agreement with this specific location that has resulted in several calls a day. So that's the reason for the increase. Because of the reason for the increase, we're not needed for that specific instance. So we've scaled back our response under those instances.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lieutenant Carroll, I have a question. It follows up really about the motor vehicle injuries that were up this month. Were those injuries primarily on the major routes that pass through the township, or was there a mix that were on some of our more neighborhood roads?
I'm sure there was a mix, but I'd have to get you a specific answer to get that. And I will do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Supervisors Announcements, item number 4. I'll go ahead and start. I guess it was last week, Sean Walsh and I met with the Management Association, with the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association, where we were presented with information related to how they calculate the assessments for each of the new homeowners as they put their deposit down, become responsible for an assessment. And during that meeting, we met with people from Unicap who do those calculations on behalf of the association. And at the end of the meeting and discussion with the individual from Unicap, we were able to vote as a first and a second to move forward with the special assessment. And right now at this point, they say that they may only need one board member to participate annually. And Mr. Walsh and I can talk about whether that would be him or me going forward still. Are there any other supervisor announcements?
Yeah, sure, I can go. As reported in the last meeting, both Sean and I attended a hazard mitigation plan webinar on November the 9th, and that we followed that up with a meeting with staff on November the 24th to talk about specific mitigation actions that could be suggested to be added to the plan for West Goshen. And specifically, we talked about the Montgomery Avenue culvert being replaced, upgraded, and we also talked about developing pipeline emergency response planning and also exercising both tabletop and field exercises. So this is going to be a continual process to follow this up. Next item, I attended the Mariner Emergency Response Outreach, or MIRO, training on November the 23rd at the Ludwig's Corner Fire Department. And I shared the PowerPoint presentations that was presented there with the board and also with staff. The whole goal here in my mind is to develop an emergency response plan in the form of an annex to the emergency operation plan that's already in place for the township. And Derek wrote up a draft of a letter with board input to the county commissioners to develop a countywide response plan along with tabletop and field exercises to test the effectiveness of such a plan. So we'll be looking for continued dialogue with the county on that regard. Finally, I attended a PSAT's website on December the 8th regarding Right to Know, Sunshine, and the Ethics Act. And I hope we can be scheduling a session with our solicitor, with our township board members, commissioners, and committee members to be advised on all three of those laws. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Ashley,
Any other board members? Sean, go ahead.
Ashley, do you want to go ahead? Do you have something?
No, before you go, is anyone here from Good Fellowship, like representing Good Fellowship?
Actually, it's Kim Holman from Good Fellowship.
Okay, Sean, maybe after your announcement, if Kim wants to give us a rundown of their report, it's included in here. So if she wanted to make any comments.
Okay, I will do. So I only have one announcement, really. That is that I continue to be involved in an advisory group on behalf of the Westchester Area Council of Governments, which is the cross-municipality effort that we have relative to our renewable energy work. So I've been active with a small team that's looking at what it would take to move forward with a power purchase agreement where we could access renewable energy that could well be at a lower price than we're paying today. We did get responses to a request for information that was sent out. We got those responses in November. We're currently reviewing the information, and at the initial glance, we're very pleased with some of the pricing proposals that were put in there. They certainly seem very competitive. And so we're going to look towards a next step in January of proposing to have an energy consultant prepare a request for proposals or request for pricing that would be a more formal approach to getting proposals back that we could then consider entering into contracts with. So the work moves forward, and at this point, like I said, it's quite promising in terms of what we're seeing at this early stage. Thanks.
Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to share regarding Good Fellowship?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity for me to speak. As Chief Carroll mentioned, we have seen an increased call volume this month. There is one location that's contacting us about 3 times a day. And as he mentioned, we have met with that location. We've contacted multiple county agencies about that. So we're actually handling that in a different way. So that's some of the volume. However, we have seen an increased call volume. Earlier in the year, as we mentioned, we were down almost 50% during the March, April, May months. The world is back with a vengeance on 911. So we've been at third or fourth call more frequently. And in fact, November's call volume was the highest we've seen in 2 years for people calling. So we have seen a significant increase for people calling. So we do have a high COVID volume right now. We're transporting probably 2 to 3 patients a day on that. So the hospitals are also on divert status a lot of the times. So we're having to go to further locations. We're doing pretty good in-house with maintaining a COVID-free population. We do have 2 or 3 providers who had socially acquired COVID. So we do have some providers that are quarantined, and that's pretty much across the county. We're seeing that now in the first responder community. It's mainly socially acquired because the PPE does do its job on the street. So we have had some impact of that. Most of the providers are back. It's minimal symptoms, but it's definitely having to keep them quarantined. So other than that, like I said, it's been a busy 2 months. I foresee a busy December. Call volume hasn't really subsided at all during December as well. So we're carrying on and we're gutting it through, but it has been busy.
Hey, Kim, do you know, have you guys heard anything about where you are on the list for maybe getting vaccinated with the new vaccine? Have you talked to anybody about that?
Yeah, so as you know, I'm pretty actively involved in Harrisburg legislatively, and then also with the county. We are, and just real quick before I forget, Chaz Brogan, who is our director of operations, we call him Chief Brogan, he just got elected to be president of the EMS Council, which actually is kind of like the House of Representatives for EMS in Chester County. So he's the head guy now for all of Chester County. So we're pretty, yeah, it's cool. So we're pretty locked in right at county level, which is nice. So that relates to the vaccine and the way that There's 3 sources for that, for getting vaccines straight from the state. And usually the state is like a bypass to the hospitals and then to the health department at Chester County. So right now we have 3 options for getting the vaccine, either via hospital, the county, or directly from the state. So as you know, the CDC put out the guidelines and said all first responders would be in 1A. At the Pennsylvania level, they initially said that was going to be how they were going to handle it, and then they pulled back on that a little bit, so it had all of the first responders panicked. It ends up that we're still going to be in one of the first lines of distribution for pre-hospital, but the first wave is going to the hospitals. So the hospital staff, Chester County Hospital, Tower Health, Mainline Health, they're going to get their ER staff vaccinated first. However, we've been in contact with Chester County Hospital, Tower Health, as well as Mainline. And Chester County Hospital and Tower Health are going to, if they have any extra, give us high priority, and then we're going to prioritize in-house with our first responders. Of the highest exposure responders will get it first, and then it'll kind of work its way through the system. If that falls through, we also have the backup with the Chester County Health Department. So Chester County is going to take care of the first responders if the hospitals cannot. So worst case scenario, the first responders should be seeing vaccinations sometime in January.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's working out pretty well. We just, we're trying to get, I know everybody, it's a hot topic and everybody wants to get the vaccine. There's distribution issues. As you know, the first one to come out is probably going to be the Pfizer one to the hospitals, and that has the temperature requirements. So to do that in point of care and outside the hospital is kind of difficult. Chester County Health Department does have the capability of doing that, but they're probably going to go with the Moderna vaccine. It's a little bit more durable and has, doesn't have the maintain of the temperature with it. So there's just a lot to it. We're trying to figure it out, and it is a priority, and we're working our way through it.
And one last question for you. You said that you were getting a lot of diverted kind of orders from Chester County Hospital. Is that right? And is that because of COVID or other reasons?
Yeah, so it's kind of complicated. I was actually talking to Senator Committa's office the other day about that. So a lot of times you'll hear a hospital go on divert, and there's a lot of reasons they go on divert. There's high patient volume, and then some of the hospitals are on total divert. So there's two different things there. So high patient volume, and being a previous ER nurse at Paoli and a nursing supervisor, I'm intimately familiar with this stuff. High patient volume is you've exceeded your capacity, but it's usually temporary. And once the influx of all the patients, you kind of get caught up, you can open the hospital back up, or you just say, hey, it's a courtesy, don't come here right now. We got a lot of people. Let us get through this, and then you can come. And then there's total divert. So total divert is pretty uncommon. It can happen. Brandywine Hospital has been on total divert relatively frequently lately. The rumor is out there that they had COVID-related staff issues. So that was keeping their staffing down. So then obviously their bed volume is down. And also they just had a lot of COVID patients. So Chester County Hospital, not nearly as bad. They have not, I think their total divert has maybe been 1 or 2, and that's just anecdotally, nothing I have right in front of me. But they are getting hit with volume, and they are having bed capacity issues. But I think, once again, the EMS council team is in with ED leadership in the county level, so they are having those conversations quite frequently. I think they've just met last week, again, about how to handle this stuff. And with the snowstorm, if it's going to happen or not tomorrow, they even talked about how they were going to handle those issues. So it's everybody's talking. It's going really well. But yeah, the divert situation is truly a total divert is relatively uncommon. And then the high patient volume is just, like I said, the ebb and flow of the push of patients coming in.
You guys are doing an awesome job. I just want to say thank you. And thank you for updating us. I really, truly appreciate it.
No problem. I know we had mentioned this before, and I don't want to take up too much time, but we do present monthly at Westchester Borough. I was actually talking to Westchester Fire Department as well. And if we could, like as you mentioned, get on at least quarterly to kind of give you an update of where we're at, we'd really appreciate that.
That would be good.
It would be good. Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. I'll coordinate and try and get us on the schedule at least quarterly.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim and Chaz.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Are there any other supervisors who would like to have an announcement?
No, I don't have any.
Anything from you?
The only thing I have is I've been working with the Goodwill Fire Company on some of their outreach to the community. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, Township Manager's Announcements. Casey?
Hi, good evening, everyone. First, I need to announce we had an executive session tonight, December 15th, to discuss potential litigation. The next 3 announcements are all related to the impending snowstorm coming tomorrow. We are canceling trash this Thursday, 12/17. It is not going to be postponed. It is canceled. So the next trash collection will be Monday, the 21st, and bulk trash will be the 24th of December. We are also postponing our yard waste event, which was scheduled for this Saturday, December 19th. We're pushing that to Monday and Tuesday, December 21st and 22nd. This has been posted on our website. It's been pushed up to social media, and we did Connect CTY calls to the community. And I'm also requesting, just in case this is a massive blizzard, there could be a possibility for reimbursement for expenses. So I'm requesting that the board tonight declare a snow emergency from 11 a.m. December 26th, tomorrow, through 11 a.m. December 18th, which is Friday morning. If I may have that, please.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Aye. I guess public comment.
Robin, you're muted.
We have a motion and we have a second. So
Hi,
we'll go ahead and ask if there's any public comment.
Hi, this is Margie Swart.
Hi, Margie.
Hi, Mr. Lalonde, would you just explain just what that means, what that entails?
Well, if the state of Pennsylvania is deemed to have enough damage from the storm, the federal government will declare us a disaster area. There's no definite chance it'll happen. That'll be determined later after the storm passes through. Then we can apply for 75% of our expenses for salt and overtime expenses for the storm.
Okay, thank you. So the fact that the board's passing it really doesn't assure anything. Does the state have to?
The federal government has to declare us a disaster area, and we haven't had one in a few years. So it takes an incredible amount of millions of dollars of damages in order to declare a disaster area. It doesn't mean that we can't ask for reimbursement without it being declared by the
Okay.
feds.
Great, thank you for that explanation.
But Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but we also have to declare emergency as well in order to put ourselves on the queue for any possible reimbursement. Is that correct?
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, you need to declare an emergency, which you're doing tonight, for that time window for expenses, correct?
Okay.
Okay, was there another item on your list?
No, that's everything. I just need a vote on the emergency declaration.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, so we'll go ahead and take the vote. I'll go ahead and start and say aye. Ashley?
Aye.
Hugh?
Yes, aye.
Sean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
All right, very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to move to item number 6, the Township Engineer's Announcements. Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll leave the stormwater stuff till later. I believe we're going to discuss several of those items as a course of business. An update on Graystone. The substructures for the 3 pedestrian bridges on the trail system have been completed, and the superstructures were scheduled to be placed this week. However, with the weather the way it's going to be, I presume that that's going to be postponed until sometime next week or the week after, depending on how the holidays impact the contractor schedules. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 7, zoning officers announcements. Mr. Bill Webb.
So we've been the zoning hearings. We don't have anything coming up. I just wanted to update the board on the property maintenance liens. I did request Kristen's office to file liens against the 5 properties that still had outstanding bills that were not paid for property maintenance that was done over the summer, which is basically the grass cutting. Those liens have been filed, and we received copies of those liens in the office today. All 5 people are deceased, so we're not going to be able to claim that money or receive that money until after those properties are sold down the road. So I have nothing else further. Thank you.
Unmute. I apologize. Item number 8, final land development approval of 11 Hagerty Boulevard. Mr. Craig will introduce this.
Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. This is a pretty simple land development project for Goshen Leisure Development, who are represented this evening by Mr. Freeze and their engineer, Adam Brower. The scope of this project is simply to reconfigure an existing building, which was part of a prior land development project, to a rectangular configuration, which is shown on the screen, which also resulted in changing the configuration of the stormwater facilities, which are 2 rain gardens to the north and the west of the existing building. The building did increase by 95 square feet, which is a pretty de minimis change. The stormwater does accommodate that, and there's been some additional parking provided in it also. That's pretty much the scope of the project. The Planning Commission reviewed it at their meeting last week and recommended that the board approve the project. Mr. Freeze or Adam, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Rick. Thanks. This is Adam Brower. It's really just a reconfiguration, as I think you're all aware. The site has been moving along over the years with construction of the first 4 buildings, and simply this building, the prior layout had an odd-shaped building here that they were just having a tough time marketing. We think with this reconfiguration, our hope is, of course, that they are able to market it, get it to construction, and finally finish the build out of the site.
So does the board have any questions regarding the project?
Rick, I have a question. Did you say that the number of parking spaces increased? And if so, was that an increase then in total impervious surface?
Partially, it would be an increase, but 30 of the spaces are future spaces that are going to be kept green for the time being. I don't know off the top of my head what that split would be. Possibly Adam could address that.
Yeah, I think we added like another 25 or so spaces, and really what it was taking advantage of again the reconfiguration of the building, and as Rick pointed out, the parking around it. The prior layout had a access drive running behind the building that was did not have the parking on it. It was more of a thought to be maybe a more industrial use, which we're finding is not the case for the 4 buildings that are there. So we took advantage of the reconfiguration and the fact that we had that drive aisle to provide parking there, knowing that, of course, parking is always a concern with this type of campus, and we wanted to make sure we had the parking. The amount of impervious increase was very minimal. I think it was, less than 1,000. I don't know for certain, but less than 1,000 square feet
type of increase. Again, we already had the drive aisle, so it was just adding in the parking.
I thought it was 95 square feet is what we discussed at the planning commission. It was, yeah, it was very small amount of increase in impervious surface, which, and I'll ask the question, the rain gardens, they are designed to be able to handle the intended stormwater flow, and to what level storm would those rain gardens be able to handle?
So they are built as rain gardens. They'll have vegetation, but they are designed for the full, from the 2-year event up to and including the 100-year event, to detain that runoff. And then over and above that, there are additional systems on the site. So the rain gardens are in series. They then discharge to conveyance piping, which ultimately goes to an underground stone pipe system that further detains the runoff.
And it eventually would run off into Goose Creek, is that correct?
The discharge from the pipe storage goes to Goose Creek, that's correct.
Let me ask you another question on somewhat unrelated. The roofing system to this proposed building, would that be solar panel ready? Will it be able to handle the solar panel installation?
Mr. Freeze might be able to answer that. I know that's something they're looking at. I wouldn't say that they're building the system to accommodate it regardless of whether or not they can handle panels. I will tell you, as I'm sure you all know, this is a redevelopment site. So they are conscious of the loading on the structures, but it is something they're looking at.
And my final question is, getting back to the parking, the sidewalks along the perimeter of the proposed building, are they sufficiently away from the parking spaces to provide for pedestrian safety?
Yes.
Okay, those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question if I can, Adam. The County Planning Commission review letter indicates that there's 18 parking spaces shown on an adjoining parcel, and they question whether or not there's any easement to allow that to occur. And again, I'm jumping into this, never having reviewed this before, so I'm sorry if that issue's already been addressed and dealt with.
Right. I think the parking they're talking about, Kristen, or at least I would say the only parking I can think of is the parking on the access drive. It would be the, I guess that's the west side off the cul-de-sac. That's also property owned by the applicants. So we never envisioned an easement there or the need to, but as it's under the same ownership.
But those parcels are separate, so they could be sold off and conveyed independently. Are those 18 spaces they're talking about needed to comply with the off-street parking requirements for this particular site?
They're not. They're if they're utilized for the site at all, I'm not really sure, but we do exceed the required amount.
Okay, and I'll let Rick decide whether he has any issues with that.
I already did review that, and those spaces are under a common ownership in proximity to the site and are not necessary to meet the zoning requirements. In fact, there is an excess, particularly with the 30 spaces in reserve. So I have no issue with that comment.
Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Would it be in order now to make a motion to approve the project? If so, I'll make that motion.
All right, I'll second it. Anybody speaking up?
I'm sorry, my dog is whining outside my door and I'm trying to keep him quiet, so I apologize. I had to step out. All right, so I think I heard a motion and a second. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's go ahead and open up to public comment.
This is Margie Swart.
Hi, Margie, go ahead.
I just have a general question, I guess, for Mr. Craig. Once a development is approved, is there a time limit on how long an applicant can take to finish the plan?
No, there is not. There is a time limit to start the project of 5 years, provided that there are any significant code changes that would need to be made after that 5-year period. But once the project starts, there is not a time limit to complete it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and start the vote. John, do you want to start?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Robin, aye.
Well, thank you very much. I hope everybody has a happy holiday.
Thank you.
You too. Okay, we're moving on to item number 10, presentation of the final 2021 General Fund, Sewer Fund, Waste and Recycling Fund, Capital Reserve Fund, and Highway Aid Fund budgets, and approval of Resolution 19-2020, adopting said 2021 budget.
So Robin, if I could introduce the subject here while Christine gets ready to talk to a couple of slides. So the board has previously discussed the preliminary budget and it approved that back in November. And since then, we've resolved a couple of outstanding budget items in terms of agreement. They were related to the fire company contributions and the Good Fellowship ambulance contribution, police dispatch. And we had 3 issues we still needed to resolve tonight before we could adopt a final budget and pass the resolution you just mentioned. The issues are the budgeted amount for 2021 on training and conferences, and some work that township staff management had done to look at potentially some savings on that expense. The request of Rick to pull together a plan with a cost to evaluate the stormwater that's constructed of corrugated metal pipe and what we need to do in 2021 to evaluate that and determine a plan of action and the potential for consulting engineering costs to do that work. And then the final item that was still outstanding was Hugh had we arranged for a presentation from Fame Fire Company at the early December meeting, and they have a request in that we had said we would review and decide if we were going to take any action on that at this meeting. So those are the 3 outstanding items. And to just frame up the full budget picture for the general fund and the capital reserve fund, Christine has done a couple of slides that show the movements from the original preliminary budget to walk us through now. Thanks, Christine. Christina, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm good now. Okay, Case, if you want to go to the first slide. Okay, so our first slide is for the general fund. There's not, it's pretty self-explanatory. At the top, we have the revenues, and the bottom, we have the expenditures. You'll see the preliminary budget starting numbers and the changes that have been made so far. The changes that have yet to be approved are marked with an asterisk so that you can see, and I've presented the numbers, both including those proposed changes and without them, so you can see the numbers both ways, and the deficits for the preliminary final and the final with the proposed changes on the side as well.
Does anybody have questions for Christine on these changes that we show here that are proposed for the general fund? So most of these we've either discussed before and approved. And again, it's just the 3 with the asterisks that show the items we still need to discuss after her presentation.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to ask Christine, could you talk about this transfer to capital reserve of $80,000? What is that about?
That is for the stormwater comprehensive plan that's to be discussed tonight. I believe Rick distributed those numbers earlier today. That's what those numbers are for. That expense is going to be paid out of the capital reserve, but we're going to fund it through a transfer from the general fund.
So let me just follow up with that then. I see a quote we got from the consulting engineering firm HRG for $30,000 to do come up with a plan, a study plan. What's the discrepancy between the $30,000 quoted by HRG and this $80,000 transfer to the capital reserve to cover that?
Do you want to elaborate on that, Rick? I think I have the email to pull up. I know there was 30,000 for HRG, but I know there 50,000 was another portion of it. The total project or the total plan cost is going to be 130,000. We already have 50,000 in the budget for the Army Corps of Engineers, and this 80,000 is the additional for the $130,000 total project cost.
And the $50,000 in addition to the HRG fee of $30,000 is for televising areas that we can't see with the pole camera data to verify the condition of other pipe systems.
Could you talk about that a little bit? $50,000 to televise? I don't quite understand. The 30. Is that in addition to what the Army Corps of Engineers is doing as far as scoping the existing corrugated metal piping?
Yes, it is. The Army Corps project was a 4-year project, 3 years of which have been completed. The 4th year was to have been completed this year, but that obviously didn't happen with the COVID situation. So $50,000 worth of that work remains to be done next year. We've found from the data that we have received from them so far that although the pole camera works very well with relatively short pipe runs, if the pipe runs are long, several hundred feet between inlets, the pole camera can't reach those areas. So there's going to be a need for televising some of those longer lines. We don't have an exact number on how much that is, but televising costs currently $500 an hour. So we're anticipating up to $50,000 for the additional televising necessary to do the prioritization.
And who would be contracted to do this? Or are you considering would this be done by the Army Corps of Engineers, or would it be done by another subcontractor?
No, it would have to be done by another subcontractor. The Army Corps doesn't have that equipment or that capability.
So this is to cover the need for those portions of the corrugated metal pipe that the Army Corps of Engineers is not able to do because they're not equipped to do so. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
That's correct. And just so you're aware, the pole camera that the Army Corps is using belongs to the township. So we're actually providing that equipment to them.
Would this $50,000 be purchasing new equipment, or would it be hiring a subcontractor to do the work?
No, it would be hiring a subcontractor to do the work. We can't touch that equipment for $50,000.
Okay.
Right.
John, just a little bit more explanation. We're not going to televise all the piping. It's basically based on the video that we get from the pole camera will inform us as to which lines we need to go and investigate further. So if we see something suspect for, within the video that we already have, and we believe it could well extend further down a pipe, or there's a spot down the line that we feel needs looking at, it's going to be a selective use of this video camera equipment with a contractor. It's not going to be comprehensive and do every line. It's going to be a selective use.
That's correct. And we hope not to have to spend $50,000, but I also don't want to lowball it and give you an unreasonably low estimate either. So we're trying to estimate that as accurately as we can at this point.
And we definitely need to come up with a game plan to address this issue. It's been persistent for decades and for too long. So we definitely need to address it and come up with a plan to deal with it. So, okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
for
Hugh.
Christine.
Yes.
How much is, or what is the final net monies that we have in reserve after the $3.5 million deficit?
Give me 1 second to pull that up. I just didn't put it on the slides because I wasn't sure if all of the changes were going to go in or not. But based on if all of the proposed items go through, the fund balance after this deficit will be about $8.6 million.
Okay, thank you. In that regard, then, we have listed as a question mark the Fame Fire Country contribution of $25,000. In Mr. Renane's presentation at the beginning of the month, he suggested that possibly if we were tight, we could spread it out over 3 years. I'd suggest that we do that, and that we make it $10,000 a year for the 3 years in lieu of the $25,000 lump this year.
Okay, so thanks for that suggestion, Hugh. Let's let Christine finish up the second slide, and then we'll come back and we'll address these 3 issues that we have as asterisks on this slide and have a full board discussion with them. So thanks for the reminder. Christine, could you go to the next slide, please?
Sure. Okay, and then this is the slide for the Capital Reserve Fund. Clearly, there's not as much movement or changes occurring in this fund. Again, just the asterisk items are yet to be approved. The other items have already been approved in previous meetings and are currently included in the numbers. So again, you can see the final budget numbers and then the final budget numbers if those proposed additions are added. If anybody has any questions.
Hey, Christine, this is Ashley.
Sure.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. I don't know if I'm understanding this right. So with the stormwater comprehensive plan with the 80 grand here under expenses, is that the same 80 grand that was in the previous slide?
It is. What we're doing is on the Capital Reserve Fund, you'll see in the revenues that $80,000 coming in from the general fund. Essentially, we're spending the money out of the Capital Reserve Fund, but we're funding it through the general fund. So that's all that is.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Margie.
Sure.
Why is it necessary to transfer the 80,000 from the general fund to the Capital Reserve Fund? Why not spend it just right out of the general fund?
So, Marge, you might remember my answer to that question related to how we're treating stormwater expenses. When we have money spent relative to the asset of a stormwater system, such as the assessment and the replacement of this corrugated metal pipe, it's good practice to show that as being funded from a capital account like the Capital Reserve Fund. The general fund, in my mind and in my opinion, is the source of funds to pay for ongoing operating expenses that might be associated with a stormwater operation that will be designed to be compliant with our permit as we go on an annual plan to deal with that. So it's a differentiation between ongoing annual expenses associated with permit compliance operations versus an investment in a capital asset like a stormwater physical pipe system.
Okay, thank you.
I asked this question before, and I'm going to ask it again. Given the strange and weird times we're living in, Christine, do you anticipate any drastic change in our revenues anticipated this year and into next year following this COVID epidemic that we're living through? Do you think there might be any problem there?
I do not. I will say, we were initially concerned about transfer tax. I can tell you we already exceeded our budgeted revenue for that account this year. We were, expecting a slowdown in the Woodlands, due to the closures and things like that. The homes there have been selling so quickly. It's been increasing our transfer tax drastically. So no, I don't see any impacts there. Same thing with EIT. We are right on track to potentially exceed our budget for 2021. So there doesn't appear to have been any impacts to our revenues at this time. I mean, obviously anything can change in the next couple months. There's still a lot of unknowns, but we're not anticipating any major changes at this point.
Well, good to hear. I would like us to take a look at this again in July, just to see where we're at, just to take a snapshot of, how things are going, just to get a better feel for this, mid-year.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it constantly, so it's definitely something we have our eyes on.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Casey, could you go back to the previous slide and we'll have the board discussion about the 3 remaining items. So I'll have a go at kicking off the discussion. So you can see the 3 items there that are starred. Derek had provided the board with an internal memo related to the fact that, as we go into 2021, with continuing COVID impacts to the ability to do training in person and hold conferences for continuing education, et cetera, for staff, that's likely to be the budget number that we have assumed a kind of more normal year, and that there's therefore some headroom to reduce the training and conference costs across the departments. And it's shown here as a proposal reduction of $18,590. My own thinking on this was that actually we could maybe cut this a little bit further. I was hoping that we would save enough money in training and conferences to pay for the consulting engineer associated with the stormwater. So with that still as a possibility, we know that the budget cost from HRG was indicative of $30,000 to do the work. I would suggest that potentially the training and conferences cost savings could be increased to the same number to basically offset that expense that we did not have in the original preliminary budget. I still am an advocate of course, of having training and ability of staff to maintain their credentials and certifications. Hugh had made the point earlier that as we go through the year and look at the second half of the year, we would rely on township management to make sure that staff were availing themselves of training as needed, but obviously within a budget number that we will hopefully agree tonight. So that would be one suggestion. My own view on Fame Fire Company is, we can only make a decision tonight around what contribution we can make for 2021. We can only indicate that the board would consider it again in the following years. We're only approving a budget for 1 year. If it's $10,000, I would suggest the board also consider, do we want to make the full contribution to Goshen Fire, or would we want to reduce that by the $10,000 we might give Fame Fire Company? So those are my thoughts.
I'm going to jump in there. I'll follow up with that. I originally made the suggestion about eliminating the training and conference for the year, but I got pushed back from Derek, understandably so, and I get that. But I would tend to agree with you, Sean. I think we could increase that to maybe $30,000. I think considering where we're at and the rollout of the vaccine, there again, you listen to the news reports, we may not see 70% of the population vaccinated until late spring. So that would be taking us almost into the middle of the year anyway. So I would support that as well. So we're looking at a $30,000 reduction there, and for conferences, I would support that. And as far as the Fame Fire Company, I'm going to go with Hugh's suggestion of the $10,000, but also I think we should take a look at that from year to year to encourage all the fire companies, not just Fame, but the others as well, to up their game as far as reaching out for charitable contributions and having events to raise monies, for the general public, and not just look to West Goshen, as a deep pocket, as a sugar daddy, so to speak. But anyway, I think I'd be going along with $10,000, like I said in the prior meeting, for the fire Fame Fire contribution for this year, and then take a look at it for the following year and so forth. So I would go along with that. So those are my feelings on it. Do we want to make some motions here instead of just?
Well, can we hear what the other board members say, John, and then we'll get to whether we need to make any motions. Ashley, what are your thoughts?
I had a thought there, Sean, on the Goshen Fire Company reduction of 10 to make up for the Fame. I would agree with that. The Goshen is in fairly decent shape, and you and I had been out there, and I had been out with Casey. Their finances are fairly solid, so I don't think that a reduction to 79,532 would be a bad thing for them.
I mean, it's still an increase, obviously. Here we're still increasing by 79 because these are shown as changes in terms of additions to what the building budget already had.
No, I agree, and I understand that.
Okay. Thank you. Ashley, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm going to address these from 1 to 3. For the conferences, Casey and Derek, can you tell me how much of that is travel related, like budget for travel, as like instead of the actual cost for staff to attend the conference, like registration?
I don't have those numbers in front of me. Maybe Christine or Derek do.
I do not. I can do that breakdown, but I mean, it varies. It's probably on an ongoing basis. Like if I had to pick some of the more prominent national conferences, some of the registration, probably half of what it costs to actually go to the conference itself. So, I mean, ballpark, it's probably 40% registration, and then the rest of it is 60% to actually go there. And that varies depending on where it is. Some of this is labeled conferences, but it is conferences and training. So I think that's an important point. Clearly this year is different with the type of training we're going to be doing, but I mean, a ballpark, I would say, if you're just going by registration versus everything else, I would say maybe 60-40.
And sorry, Casey,
okay.
What are these conference holders saying? Like, are they canceled? Are they going forward?
And that's sort of why I, obviously I reduced it. I didn't reduce it to the level you're talking about now. Initially I was of the opinion it could be a little bit more. After the November meeting, I actually got a couple of conferences emails that people are actually pushing them back. Some of them, like one is usually in the summer, just for instance, that is now going to be in September or October. So I do foresee some being able to be pushed back. So obviously we'll do what the board wants on this front, but I think there's going to be a mixture, to be honest with you. I think you're going to see some canceled, and I think you're going to see some that are trying to be pushed back. So I think you're going to see a lot more on the back end of this year being spent versus the first half of the year.
Yeah. Just as another example, we do spend a good amount of money to send the board to PSATs every year and staff. PSATs, that's in I think it's April 18th this year. They're still going ahead with the conference. I don't suspect any of us will be going because we won't be rolled out with vaccine by then probably.
Yeah.
So that's a significant expense that we expend every year, which will be saved most likely because I can't imagine any of us wanting to go without a vaccine. So.
Right, and that registration fee was rolled over from last year's cancellation, right? So, or this 2020's cancellation, but then saving on the rest of, lodging and all that other stuff.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, is it too crazy to say we would take it by a case-by-case basis of these conferences where if it were something that were travel related, that were a big expense that the board could just either.
Well, I mean, I think, we obviously need a number for the 2021 budget, but to your point, if it was, if the vaccine was going really well and we were creeping up to that number, later in the year and we had one or two off conferences where we thought it was worthwhile, we can certainly revisit that in a public meeting and have you discuss it later on. But, we need a number to put in there. But yeah, I mean, the board could, discuss finances at any point throughout the year for sure.
Yep.
Okay. As far as FAME is concerned, so look, I'm just looking at these numbers and I'm thinking to myself, do I think that it's better to spend the $10,000 maybe on training our staff versus contributing to FAME Fire? My answer is yes. I would rather budget funds for training and conferences, whether those conferences are happening in person, which they probably aren't. My only reason is because FAME was never a part of the discussion originally. And we also gave them a one-time contribution for this project of $100,000, which was the biggest contribution that anyone around here had given to them. And it seems like they exceeded their budget by quite a bit. And they're trying to make up for that.
That's not true.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hugh, did you say something?
Hugh, did you say something?
That's not correct.
Okay. Do you know why they still need money then, Hugh? What was the reason again? They fell short on their fundraising?
Reason is correct. Not that the costs increased, but rather that they hadn't raised enough to complete the whole project.
Right. So my point is that they tried to raise money to add an addition to their fire company, which included a gym and other things. And now they don't have enough. They built it, and now they don't have enough to pay for what they built. That's what I'm gathering from that. My point is I would rather spend that money. We've already given big contributions to these other Good Fellowship, Goshen, who actually do a lot more coverage in our area. And I would rather give that money to funding training for our staff. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, Robin, what do you think?
Yep, I'm going to just talk directly to Derek. Derek, when you and I had a conversation about putting together that memo, one of the things that I wanted to see in that was the individuals in the township who have to are required to meet their credentialing every year, every other year. You made a nice adjustment in conferences, reducing it by $18,590. I guess I question, what is the likelihood, or what do you already know and expect if things are going to be pushed back to the fall months? Can you give us a little bit of an insight in terms of what type of training and conferencing they would be doing in just general terms?
So for instance, I'll just use the department that I oversee as an example. So codes and zoning and planning. The one conference I was talking about, and this, I don't even know if I'll be able to attend this year, but StormCon for stormwater is a big national conference that I am currently a certified stormwater inspector in training. I have to go to this conference again in order to complete my training and take a test. So this is just one example of, they usually have it in the summer. They pushed it back to the fall in order to try to accommodate more inoculation by the fall. EduCode is a huge one. EduCode for our building inspectors to keep their certifications for ICC and UCC. That is always in March. So I was talking to Bill about this the other day. Right now, they're having it in March, but I don't foresee us going because I don't feel comfortable with the staff leaving the state at this point. I'm hoping more places like that start realizing they're going to have a dwindling population going and have conversations to start moving those conferences back. Again, some are already, but not everybody has made the moves yet. I suspect after the new year and after the holidays, you will see more conferences pushing back to the fall. And I think you're going to see sort of a training explosion, if you will, in the fall of next year. But again, just back to the original point, a lot of the quote unquote requirements are, particularly in my department, when you're talking about inspections, zoning and planning and those type of things, are definitely keeping their certifications so we have in-house inspection. But it's a challenge, Robin. It's not, we've had these conversations for the last few months, and trying to determine exactly what's going to happen throughout 2021 is not easy. And we're hopeful. We're hopeful by February or March there'll be 4 approved vaccines and inoculation will continue to increase. But we just don't have a crystal ball to exactly know how that's going to transpire and when it is going to transpire.
Thank you for that update.
It's also a possibility that, just like the PSATS conference last year with all video conference, some of these may offer that. If they even have it in person, they may also offer the video component as well. I misspoke. I'm not against training, so that's not where I'm coming from at all. I think it's really important our staff pursue training, as well as board members, commission members. It's just a question of how best to do it safely and most efficiently. If we could do it by video conferencing rather than actually going there, then let's take the former option.
And Casey and I have had that conversation too. And just to reiterate to the board and assure the board, we will not allow training in person to commence without A, discussing it with the board prior, and B, having a good handle on what the heck is going on in this world and where we are in vaccinations and inoculation. So
yeah, we have a very strict travel policy, even for personal travel right now, given the surge in COVID, to the point where employees have to quarantine and test just per the Pennsylvania guidelines. So sending employees even in state for training in a congregate setting isn't going to happen until vaccinations occur.
So to build on those points that have been made, it would seem to me, I know in our preliminary budget, we basically put in a number that would cover us in a normal year. The conversations indicated it's unlikely to be a normal year, certainly through the first 6 months. So to a point that John made earlier, one thing we could do is be prudent now and cut the budget down, a little bit further by 30,000, like I said, and then revisit this in the middle of the year when we'll have more clarity as to what has been pushed into the second half of the year. We'll review where we are with our budgeted amount versus the ability to give people the training and the certifications that they need. And if we're a little light and our revenues are where they need to be, we can make an adjustment. It seems a reasonable approach.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Derek, I think as the year goes by, you'll start to see, I think, the changes, whether or not they're going to limit our ability to actually go to them. And that would be helpful for us to, when it's the right time for you to give us an update on what is still viable and something that the township believes still needs to happen, so that we can go back and take a look. Okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that sounds very prudent.
I just want to ask for a little bit of clarification since I'm going to have to redo these numbers. Are we reducing the conferences by 30,000 total, or an additional 30,000 to the 18,000 that we have listed here?
It would be to a reduction of 30,000 in total, so another 11,410 above what you already show.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure before I made any adjustments.
So Robin, I think I've heard enough to be able to make a motion and see if I get a second for it across all these 3 points at this stage, if you'd like me to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would like to make the motion to reduce conferences and training by a further $11,410, to accept the $80,000 required to move the stormwater comprehensive approach forward as indicated on the slide, to reduce the FAME fire contribution to a $10,000 donation, and to change the Goshen fire contribution to be $79,532 in addition to what was in the preliminary budget. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any public comment?
Hi, this is Margie.
Hi, Margie, go ahead.
Is this public comment on just these changes, or is this approving the budget?
Just these changes.
Okay, so that'll be another motion later on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughtful and thorough consideration on those reductions and changes. And actually, one more question. Could you just clarify, it would be, as a citizen, my request on those reduction in the conferences and training, that those are affected just on the non-uniformed line items and not to the uniformed expenses at this point?
They were never the reductions that we put forward last month, and these were not, had nothing to do with uniform conferences and training.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll go forward with the vote. Sean, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Robin? Aye.
So Casey, we have to pass a resolution now. Do we have the numbers to use for that, or how do we manage the process at this point?
Yeah, the resolution that was published, it was blank, so we'll need to input those. Let's see. So, let's just have a little dialogue here between me and Christine. So, Christine,
I'm working on it as we speak.
okay. Do you want to come back to this, Robin, to give her some time to fill in those numbers for each of the?
Yeah, we can do that before we fill in the resolution. Yep.
Okay. And if you want, you can move to the resolution 2020 then for the real estate tax.
Casey, can you just real quick tell me which specific numbers you need to put into the resolution?
Yeah, it's just the final. It's the final expenditure numbers. So, for example, if on the general fund, on the slide I see, or the slide we have up,
yeah,
it would be, for example, 19,866, 862.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the number I need for each of the 5 funds.
Okay. I'll get them to you.
Cool. Very good.
Okay, so we'll table item 10 for the moment, and we'll move on to item 11, Resolution 2021, or excuse me, 2020, the 2021 real estate tax millage. Go ahead, Casey.
Oh, sure. And this is just the annual housekeeping item to adopt the real estate tax millage. This is resolution 2020. There is no tax increase, real estate tax increase for included in this proposed final budget tonight. So it's the same resolution we have adopted for the past, I think, 10 or 11 years, with a 2 mil tax on each dollar of assessed valuation, or 20 cents for each $100 of assessed valuation. So we just need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2020.
And I'll second it. You did change that for the tax year 2021, correct?
Yes, I sure did.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Good, I'm hearing none, which means that people are happy. It's still 2 mils. All right, so we have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and do the vote. Can I start with you, Ashley?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Hugh? Hugh, can you hear me? Looks like he might be off. Go ahead, John.
Aye.
All right, Robin, aye. Hugh, can you hear us? Casey, can you see that he's got like a speaker that looks has an X next to it?
Yes, let me just check.
1 HP right now.
Yeah, it looks like he dropped off. That is his computer. Yeah, it looks like he has hung up his phone by accident.
Okay.
I suspect.
So if he dials back in, can we go ahead?
Yeah, you can grab his vote. Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure thing.
We've already got a majority, but he probably would like to be on.
Exactly. Okay.
All right, so we're now at item number 12. Are you comfortable with us going forward until we get Christine to fill in all these
sure.
numbers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, definitely.
So you're going to go ahead and speak with Dave about the fuel bid.
Yep. Dave is actually getting some sleep in preparation for the storm tomorrow, so it's just me tonight. We did our annual township-wide fuel bid, which we opened on December 10th, 2020 at 10:15 a.m. We received 2 separate bids for the various types of fuel that we use, including unleaded gasoline, which goes into our fuel island, BioClear ultra-low sulfur diesel, which also goes at the fuel island. We have a couple of locations that are still using heating oil. So we have a low sulfur heating oil. And then we have the dyed ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel for our various generators, meaning the big complex wide generators that we have here. We received bids from Riggins Incorporated in Vineland, New Jersey, and Riley and Sons in Exton. And Riggins Incorporated from Vineland won all 4 bids with their low bid. Unleaded gasoline was $1.40. BioClear ultra was $1.61. Low sulfur oil was $2.30 a gallon, and the dyed ultra low sulfur diesel fuel for the generators was $1.92 per gallon. We typically only receive 2 or 3 bids a year, and we recommend approval tonight.
Okay, do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, good, you're back.
He's back.
We also need you on one other item. We'll talk about that in a second.
I'll second Hugh's motion.
All right, we've got a motion and we have a second. Do we have any public comment? Okay.
Casey, I do have a question related to the bid amounts compared to this year's values that we've been paying. Do you know how they compare?
Yeah, they're just a little bit higher. The bid prices that you see are what's called the rack rate. Now, our bid requires that the day that they submit the bid, and both these bids came in 1 or 2 days before the bids were due. It's the terminal rate that they are paying at the terminal that the day that they turn it in. That's our requirement. And what it is it's the rack rate for the actual product, plus where we see the variation between the two bids is the delivery cost. So there is a small increment of delivery cost in these prices. For example, during the height of COVID, and the original height of COVID back in April, May, because use was so down, especially for unleaded gas, we were paying 90 cents a gallon delivered. So now it's crept up a little bit, but it's still very low. And of course, we're tax exempt, so that's a huge savings there.
Right.
But again, the differential is in the very minute per gallon price for delivery.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask a question about the bidding process? Could you just explain why we don't have more people bidding for this? I mean, it seemed like it would be a good thing for a company to be able to gain a contract like this for the township, and why not more local suppliers providing bids?
Well, even though Riggins is from Vineland, they have terminals all over our area. They are still local. We still have a truck here in about 20 minutes after we call them. So they're local, all their offices in Vineland. And Riley and Sons is from Exton. We've had Scheller before give us bids, but in the past probably 5 years, these are the two main bidders. There are just not a lot of bidders that supply these types of products.
I also think we have requirements in order to be here very quickly in certain circumstances, like we have a storm coming up tomorrow. So I think some companies that you may be thinking of, John, cannot deal with our requirements to be here at the drop of a hat either. That's one thing that might be keeping some companies out.
Yeah, for John, for example, we have a 2-hour response time. So Riggins obviously is the low bidder here. If we call them on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, they have to be here by 11 and fill us up. So because we have to stay in operation if we're in a storm. So this can't be. I always forget what the company that supplies Wawa. They're on a schedule, but if they can't get through because of snow, they just run out of gas. I mean, we have very strict requirements, so that's why we have so few bidders.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Robin, ready for a public comment?
I think she's muted again.
Sorry. All right. Did you make the motion and then Hugh did a second?
The other way around.
Yeah, Hugh and Sean.
I thought. Okay, just wanted to make sure we got it clear. Okay, so any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move forward with the vote. John, go ahead and start, please. John's is muted.
I'll say aye.
Okay, that was Hugh. Go ahead, John.
Aye.
Okay, Ashley.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Robin, aye. Well done with the bidding. Okay. So that was item number.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Robin. I was hit the wrong button and I was out for the real estate tax millage. Now, if you want to record a vote for me, it's aye.
Okay, great. So Casey, can you take care of that? Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, just make it organized. All right. So Christine, are you ready for us yet, or do you still need a little more time?
2 more minutes. I'm just finishing up the general fund. That's the only one that has any changes from the slides that I presented. I'm going to shoot Casey an email real quick so he can read the numbers off. Another 2 minutes and we'll be ready to go.
Sure.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I can take up a little bit of your time, I think I can provide a little more insight into Mr. Walsh's question about the accidents for this month.
Oh, great. Go ahead.
So I looked up those accidents, and of the 20, 16 were on either state roadways or intersected with state roadways. Only 4 were on what we consider local roads.
Thanks for the information. That's pretty interesting.
You're welcome.
Okay, because we're gonna take a few minutes for Christine to finish before we move on to the next item. Because I think we still need to pass the resolution, right? That's what we're looking at, item 10.
Right.
Okay.
Do you want us to go to item 13 though?
Yeah. If that's okay, sure.
Yeah, if she's okay with that, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so item number 13 is the Ravens Lane Stormwater Project easements approval. Kristen Camp and Casey Lalonde.
Sure, I can start quickly. As you all know, we're working diligently to get the Ravens Lane Stormwater Project started. We needed 11 easements from property owners. Those easements never existed before because that project dates back to the early to mid 1960s. And permanent easements for the stormwater pipe were never enacted or accepted by the township. So this is to rectify that legacy problem there. We need 11 easements across 11 pieces of private property. They're all single family homes. To date, we have received 9 of the 11. I expect 1 more to come in probably Friday. We just have to make arrangements with the property owner to notarize her documents. And then we're still waiting for 1 more, but we should have it within a week or so. And to date, we have, again, those 9, I'll read them off. The property owner and then the address. Property owner is Braun. It's Eagle Road, parcel number 52-6J-3. The property actually fronts over on West Town Road. This is kind of the back end of the property, but this is where we need the easement right off of Eagle. Property owner of Nutting, 502 Glen Avenue. Property owner of Shearer, 1209 Mallard Road. Property owner Milford, 1207 Mallard Road. Property owner Brown, 1204 Mallard Road. Property owner Gall at 1208 Mallard Road. Property owner Felice at 1209 Eagle Road. Property owner DePhillips at 1202 Ravens Lane. And then property owner Magalon at 1204 Ravens Lane. We just wanted to bring those to the board for approval tonight. They've been signed and notarized by the property owner, but we just wanted to get them done as our last meeting for the year.
Casey, if I could jump in, we prepared the easement documents. Carroll Engineering prepared the plans and the easement exhibits. In some cases, we need temporary construction easements, and then obviously we need a permanent easement for purposes of the stormwater pipe. There were some negotiations with the property owner if they had concerns about removal of a fence or removal of patio, but everybody's been very cooperative. I did speak with Ms. Quinn, is another one of the property owners, and she's a Westchester school teacher. She left me a voicemail tonight. She's willing to meet with me to sign the document. I think the only other one, Casey, is Zeminski.
Zeminski, correct.
And did you indicate that they were going to come into the township, I thought?
No, that was going to be Quinn, but Zeminski said she would have that to us. Let's see, today's Tuesday. I think she contacted me yesterday. She just needs another week to 10 days. She has a final discussion with her attorney, and then she would sign it.
Okay, so I don't know if the board wants to authorize for the other 2 as well, provided that they're on terms acceptable to the manager and the solicitor. Again, we've worked through the private property owner's concerns and been able to work, cooperatively with everybody, but that way we wouldn't have to come back for 2 additional months.
I'm fine with authorizing the other 2.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, subject to Casey and Kristen's acceptance of any conditions.
So the motion, if you're comfortable, can be to authorize the chairwoman to sign all of the easement agreements that are needed for the Ravens Lane Stormwater Pipe Replacement Project.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Kristen, could you expand on a little bit? What were some of the concerns of some of the homeowners here? I mean, what rights and obligations and responsibilities are they losing or are they taking on when you made an easement? What does that entail for these folks?
Well, John, I mean, technically speaking, there's an easement on their property today. So they bought their property based on a subdivision plan that has stormwater pipe through their property. There was no, the way we do recorded plans now, we call out specifically in your subdivision ordinance requires detailed notes with respect to easements so that in the future, the township doesn't have to go through the process that we're going through right now. So we would have it clearly marked out that it is an easement in favor of the township for purposes of maintenance of this pipe. That wasn't the case back in the 1960s when the subdivision plan was recorded. So I mean, there technically is, you know, it would be, push would come to shove if they tried to say, no, you have to remove the pipe. I mean, that just, I don't think that they would win that battle. So to be quite honest, I look at it as a housekeeping issue. There's nothing for them to lose. There's only things for them to gain, which is the township taking on responsibility for repairing the pipe, number one, and number two, for the future maintenance of it. So it's actually, in my opinion, it's a benefit to the property owners to execute these easements. There was only, I think there were 3 property owners that had concerns about, one, there was a fence and they wanted to make sure they had just put up a brand new fence and they wanted to make sure that they could keep the fence up. And so we put the language in that the fence would have to be a portion of the fence which crosses over where the pipe is, would have to come down, but they were able to put it back up, you know, once the pipe was installed. Ms. Quinn was one of the ones that I've been working with. She had installed a patio. Some of these people, some of these property owners were not aware of the fact that a pipe was there. So they installed things very close to where the pipe is and where the new pipe is going to be going. They're located within where the boundaries of the easement are because the easement goes beyond just where the pipe is. So she was concerned, she had spent some money to do that patio and she wanted the township. We had originally said that we would remove the patio and we were going to bring it back to a grass state. We were not going to reinstall the patio. She was not happy with that. So we've agreed for purposes of her ownership of the property that she can, you know, we'll put the patio back, but that if in the future the township has to get to the pipe, they're not going to put back a patio. They're going to put it back to a grass state. So that was really the only one that we had to deal with. And the other one was just the fence replacement. And then, there was one other property owner, I'm sorry. Mr. and Mrs. Gall had planted a considerable amount of new landscaping and trees. And those trees and landscaping are directly in the line of where the new pipe would go. And they asked that they could be reimbursed for the cost of those trees. And the township, you know, we had offered that was a reasonable approach and would provide them, since we're not providing them consideration for the grant of the easement, we would pay them for the cost to replant those trees somewhere else on the property.
Right.
Okay, so when the folks signed off on these easements, all that was documented within the particular easement? Okay.
Yeah, so what we did, we start with a form document that has the, you know, obviously the differences are the property owner, the property owner's names, and it bases the legal description and the plan that's attached is specific to each property, but all the other boilerplate terms such as insurance provisions, indemnification provisions, those all start out the same. And then as a property owner raised a specific concern that dealt with just their property, such as the patio or the fence, we wrote in language to address that particular concern. So I think there was only 3 that we had to make modifications to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there was another situation there on Mallet Road where the homeowner there, going back 40 years ago, had a infiltration bed drainage pipe connected into the CMP main line there. So they were concerned about addressing that going forward, but they were able to work out an arrangement with Dave Woodard, where they'll be able to drain into the system, but from the street. I don't know if that was part of the easement that they signed, but this is something they made arrangements, I think, through Dave and also with the engineering for the project. So, but I haven't heard anybody complaining, so that's all a good thing. So, okay.
Okay, so go ahead.
Do we have to vote on this?
Kristen?
Yeah, did
there's-
somebody make a motion in a second?
Yep, there's a motion in a second.
Yes, then you need to vote on it.
Take public comment though first. Sorry.
Sorry.
Any
Hi,
problem?
it's Margie Swart.
Go ahead, Margie.
Just a general question. As we survey all the stormwater piping system in the township, is this likely going to occur down the road with other homeowners?
Quite possibly. We have this residential project, Falcon Crest, was built in the early to mid 60s. There weren't inspections. There weren't very detailed easements in most cases, so we may run into this again. Absolutely.
Yeah, as you know, my interest is in stormwater, and I'm just trying in my head to see the difference between a stormwater pipe running through private property and, say, a stream running through private property. At what point does the township take responsibility for maintaining pipe on a private property, but would not maintain a stream bank or a stormwater basin on private property? So, I mean, I don't know that I need a detailed answer, but just thoughts going forward when we look to how we're going to pay for some of these stormwater improvements that are needed. How do you just distinguish stormwater facilities? What's the difference between the pipe and just the bare stream? So if anybody wants to comment, that's fine. But
I think part of it is how DEP identifies what's the municipal storm sewer system. And I think anytime you're going to have a pipe that's going to lead into the township road and the inlets in the road, or, that's going to be part of your municipal storm sewer system. But it's very fact specific. You have to look at the properties. You have to look at the easements that were memorialized as the plan was approved. I mean, it's not an easy answer. And obviously Rick Craig is much more knowledgeable than I am about, your specific systems and what DEP considers to be the township's obligations under the MS4 permitting requirements. But in this case, the township, didn't have an issue with saying this is a township pipe that we're going to fix and maintain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and follow up with the vote. I'm going to start. Robin says aye. Ashley?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Robin, Christine sent me the final numbers.
Perfect. I was just about to ask if we can go back to item 10.
Sure can. Okay. This is resolution 19 of 20 for budget year 2021. And I'll read section 1. Section 1, that for the expenditures and expenses of fiscal year 2021, the following amounts are hereby appropriated from the fund equities, revenues, and other financing sources available for the year 2021 for the specific purposes set forth below, as well as adopts the West Goshen Township 10-year capital improvements plan and financial projections by reference. The general fund in the amount of $19,830,452. Sewer fund in the amount of $7,252,242. Waste and recycling fund in the amount of $2,648,634. State Highway Aid Fund in the amount of $760,000. And finally, the Capital Reserve Fund in the amount of $3,410,238. And what I'll do is I will update that tonight or early tomorrow morning and repost this on the agendas portion of the website. Does anyone need those numbers repeated?
No, as long as you post them. I think I got most of them, but yeah.
Well, I would like to make the motion to approve resolution number 19-20 with the amount stated by Casey.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
Of course.
Go ahead.
Hi. Just some broad overviews. I'm concerned that by my calculations, I backed out the general fund transfers into the capital reserve fund. So not including the transfers, we're looking at, again, these are my calculations. So 9% increase in expenditures from 20 to 21. However, our revenues are only increasing by 4%. So it concerns me that, again, our expenditures are doubling of what our revenues are increasing. I wish we would have taken more time. And I know staff, and I know Sean, Mr. Walsh, and Ms. Stuntepec worked hard on this. But as a resident, I'm just seeing expenditures going through the roof, and that concerns me. Another thing, I'm actually talking to you. I'm fortunate to have another home out here in Park City, Utah. So I look at budgets from different municipalities and tax bills, and maybe that's perhaps why I'm so interested in these issues. But I see that we have expenditures now of about $100,000 in the Waste and Recycling Fund for recyclable returns. And I'm just wondering if maybe Mr. Lalonde can confirm, is that, I remember a few years ago, there was indication that something about recycling glass, we don't get money for recycling glass. Is that what that expenditure is for?
Actually, I'll turn that over to Christine.
Can you repeat the account that you're looking at again?
Yeah, it's Waste and Recycling Fund, and there's an expenditure, I believe, in 2021 for about, I want to say $114,000 and an expense, and that's for recycling returns.
Yes, that's, we have to pay for recycling at this point. We previously used to receive rebates for it, but that's just not the current state of the market. So that's what that expense is.
So this is a broader issue worldwide where our recycling in America used to be a lot more valuable than it is now. It's no longer valuable. We have what they call dirty recycling. I guess people aren't good at recycling. So it's no longer as valuable as it once was. And as Christine said, it was, I don't want to say a moneymaker, but it was not as, wasn't an expense. And now it's a pretty hefty expense to get rid of recycling versus a decade ago.
Okay, I'm wondering if staff or maybe the sustainability committee might want to look into that, because out here in Park City anyway, we don't recycle glass. And so glass just goes in the regular trash. And it's a hard habit for me to break out here, and I constantly get reminded of it by family. But so I guess my question is, if we are getting charged for the glass that we are recycling and it's not being accepted, then perhaps we might look to separate our recyclables, and maybe glass shouldn't be a part of the recycling.
Well, we do single stream recycling here, and glass is mandated to be recycled in Pennsylvania. It's not the cleanest thing, but you would also see then a converse charge at the landfill for tipping fees for the glass. So it's a lose-lose either way at this point.
Okay. So
until the glass recycling market comes back, that's all.
I mean, it goes beyond glass too. Some of the other recyclables are just as bad right now.
Yeah, typically the only thing we're making money on is cardboard. Everything else is either flat or we're being charged.
Okay. And I probably had some other notes, but I can follow. Oh, can somebody explain to me, I had sent an email earlier today. Can you straighten me out with this road maintenance materials and construction materials?
Sure can. Christine?
give me 1 second just to get to those pages. Okay, so the road maintenance materials is more of the regular road maintenance items. Tree trimming, concrete for repairs, crack sealing repairs, things like that. The road construction is where we pay our paving expenses out of, and any specific road related projects, like for instance, in 2021, the Boot Road restriping project is coming from the road construction account. So the road construction is more specific project, and the road maintenance materials is more strictly maintenance of the roads.
Okay, yeah. And then in my email where I broke it out, when I added, from the general fund and the state highway fund and the capital reserve fund, that's 3.3, almost $3.4 million, where it was my understanding that just the repaving of the 5 miles of roads every year was roughly, $1 million or shy of $1 million. So, if we back out that 5 miles of repaving, we're still looking at, what is that, 2.3, almost $2.4 million. And it just wasn't sure where all that money is going.
The capital reserve portion that you're referring to was discussed in the previous meetings, and those are the major stormwater repairs that are going to be occurring in 2021. And those are outlined in the summaries that were posted as well.
Okay.
For the capital reserve items.
All right. It would just be helpful if those stormwater projects were labeled as such, stormwater instead of roadway materials, even though.
Well, Margie, we follow the Department of Community and Economic Development chart of accounts, so we can't just rename funds or accounts. We have to follow exactly what they say. So we can't go in and change on a yearly basis to say exactly what those projects are per account.
All right, and then I just remembered one last thing, and I'll close it with that. On the general fund, and I don't have the budget in front of me, but under building headline, we used to capture somebody's salary under that heading, but it now shows 0. However, we show like a conference expense, we show maybe work boots expense or uniform expense. So I'm just curious as to why we still have that heading under buildings, and we're showing a 0 for their salary, but we're showing other expenditures to that heading. Actually, I do have the budget here somewhere.
That is our facilities account.
Yes. So why isn't the facilities person or employee, why isn't their salary captured where other expenses assigned to that?
Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he is technically under Public Works. So is his salary under Public Works?
That's correct. That's where it is at this point.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I would have to defer to. But
yeah, our facilities maintenance person is under Public Works, so that's why we zeroed out his salary under buildings.
Okay, and then also just, I'm not sure the board members know that your salary and Derek's salary are split. Could you just explain the percentages and what accounts that your salaries come out of?
We've done that before.
I know, but the new board members may not be aware of that.
Well, I'm familiar with it, Marge. Isn't that split between the administration and the sewer account under manager? That's what's been explained before.
A couple of years ago, there was also a percentage to waste and recycling. Is that no longer the case?
That's no longer the case.
Okay, so it's like 60-40, 60% out of general fund and 40% out of sewer fund?
I'm not sure right off the bat. I'm sorry, I'd have to check that for you.
Okay, I'll follow up with Christine.
Okay.
And copy in the board. Right.
Actually, I want to go back to the first statement you made about the budget situation overall for 2021 and your comment on that. So as I explained at the beginning of the preliminary budget review that we had in November, there are a couple of extraordinary expenses that we're going to experience in 2021 that are not typical. In particular, there's an accrual in our budget for payment for retirement, payouts to staff who've had many years of dedicated service, particularly in the police department. That's a substantial one-off cost. It's unlike I hope we don't have many retirements of 40 years plus every year going forward, but that is a chunk of money in 21's budget. And we also have an increase in the minimum municipal obligation funding for our pensions, which, as you know, is driven by some changes in the actuarial charts, and also by the investment account performance of 2018, which is used in the calculation. So those two items alone were $1 million of extraordinary expense that we have budgeted in 2021, which they should not occur to anywhere near that kind of degree as we look in 2022 and beyond. So overall, our revenues and our expenses are pretty much in line. So we're not in a desperate situation with respect to ongoing costs versus ongoing revenues. What is a problem for the township is the fact that we have these major capital investments we need to make in stormwater in particular, and ongoing funding of the sewer system, the sewer authority needs for capital expenditure over the next 10 years as well. So that is why we're seeing these major projects that we've discussed both tonight and in previous meetings, such as Ravens Lane. And you asked questions about the amount of money that's being spent in capital reserve for these type of projects. So that obviously we can't afford to have many years of Ravens Lane sized projects with the revenue base that we have. And that's why it's important that we really get a handle on what the state is of this corrugated metal pipe in the next year or so that we can proactively do the lining and repair before they become emergency situations with sinkholes and collapsed pipe that involve a complete dig out and replacement situation. So that is what's concerning to me as a board member because of its cost implications, and why I fully support the fact that we need to get on top of understanding what the condition is of all the CMP piping as soon as possible.
I concur.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that, half of the 3.5 deficit we're running this year is due to these stormwater projects, which we are having to address now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sean.
Okay, I hope in the future we can raise taxes for those stormwater projects instead of implementing a stormwater fee. I'll just get that out there too.
Well, the board will consider all options as we look at 2021, and Christine performs the evaluation of what options we have around our stormwater compliance, both for our permit and to invest in these capital assets of the township. Are there any other members of the public who have comments on the motion and the second that we've had for this resolution? Robin, I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Robin, you unmute?
I do that so nobody has to listen to my dog whine outside my door. Go ahead, Sean.
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
And Robin, aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, according to my agenda, we're just about to now go to item number 14, approval of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of November 17th, 2020 and December 2nd of 2020.
I move that they be approved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
I'll second that, but I would add something to some of the notes.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and add that then, part of your second.
Okay, for the November 17th notes, Casey, if you could add concerning the chief of police selection process, we spent a lot of time, effort, and money on that. I'd like to add a little bit more meat to that. And does have the minutes read this. Ms. Gagne announced that after a rigorous selection process and upon recommendation of the search committee, the Board of Supervisors hereby announced that West Goshen Township Police Department's Lieutenant Michael Carroll has been selected for promotion to the Chief of Police effective January 4th, 2021. And the search committee was composed of, and listed who they were, Deb Ryan, the District Attorney, Brenda Maddox, the Chester County Sheriff, Reverend Wayne Croft, the pastor of St. Paul's Baptist Church, residents Carmen Francesino, Joe Gallagher, Tina Marie Smith, and Supervisors Ashley Gagne and John Hellman. We came together with this group and we spent a lot of time on this process. And I think we did a nationwide search for the best candidate. And I think we found that candidate. And I think the public needs to know a little bit more about how much we went through to find that right candidate. So that's the first suggestion I have for changing or amending the minutes. And the second one was on the December 2nd draft on the police dispatch. Just for clarification there, the police dispatch approval was for the backfill of the regular Monday through Friday dispatch hours and 16 hours on the weekend by part-time dispatchers. So those are my two amendments to the minutes being considered.
So Casey, do you have the information you need to add them into the minutes?
I do not. John, you need to send those. I can't write that fast. So,
John, if you can write it up like you just did, that would be helpful.
I'll email it to Casey and everybody else.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was an outstanding group of people, so it's good to be they should be recognized. Okay, so we have a motion to approve. We have a second with the request that the additional information related to the advisory group. I don't know if you were talking about anyone beyond the advisory group, like the residents, but if you can just share all that with Casey.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I would like to add.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Yes.
I forget which meeting minutes, but my name was spelled wrong on one of them.
Yeah, it looks like I missed the R in Swart.
Yep. And I would just like to acknowledge that I'm very pleased with the minutes. They captured my comments more thoroughly than in the past, and I appreciate that fact. So thank you very much.
Well, that is very nice to hear from you. Thank you. And oh, by the way, please don't call us anymore when you're at Park City. I'm so jealous.
It's nice.
Is there snow?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yep. Lucky you.
Snow blower was going this morning.
All right, so we have a meeting minute approval. I believe that we've had a public comment, so we can go ahead and vote. This is just for the November 17th, 2020 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and start. Robin says aye. Ashley?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
You?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We're now going to move on to the teleconference workshop meeting on December 2nd. There is a 1.5 page of minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt?
Yeah, I'll move they be approved.
Okay.
I'll second that with John's changes that he mentioned earlier.
Oh, related to the dispatch backfill?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. Thank you. Good pickup. All right.
I'll technically amend my motion to concur.
Okay.
With Sean's comment.
Okay, very good. All right, so we've had a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment?
Call him.
Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote to approve the December 2nd, 2020 minutes from the teleconference workshop meeting. I'll go ahead and start. Robin says aye. John?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
And Hugh?
Aye.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, just give me a minute to shuffle my papers and we'll move on to item 15, which is the November 2020 Treasurers Report approval.
I'll move that we approve the 2020 November Treasurers Report.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? Okay, I'm going to say hearing none. We're going to move forward with the vote. John, why don't you start?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Robin, aye as well. Okay, now that we've approved the treasurer's report dated November 30, actually this says November 20, hold on, let's see. November 30, yeah, 2020. All we have left now is the public comment. Is there additional public comment to be heard this evening?
Let me just ask Casey, I know there's been a lot on the plate, there's been a lot going on, but just what is the status of updating all of the minutes of the past meetings that we've already approved with changes going back? I think it's almost the entire 2020 year. Where is that on your plate?
Well, all the minutes were approved. I still have to make those minor changes that you submitted, but that's just a minor housekeeping item. I haven't had time to do it yet.
I understand. Yeah, they still say draft when you bring them up on the website. They still are in the draft format. So
correct. Yeah, because they have not been updated yet. Correct.
Right.
I have a question for Lieutenant Carroll I forgot to ask during his presentation. I know we ask it every month, but could you give us an update on the status of the body camera project for the police officers?
I can. Tomorrow will be our last day of training our officers. There's a couple minor hardware fixes we have to go through, but I see no reason they won't be up and running next week.
And what is your personal opinion of the quality of the system and the quality of the video obtained from them? Are you pleased with it, or does it leave some things to be desired? What's your feeling on it?
I'm very pleased with it. It's the same company we use for our in-car camera systems. We're used to them, but it's of the highest quality, very easy to use. It links the necessary things together and does a lot of stuff in the background that help officers in the end for gathering the evidence.
Very good. Thank you.
So all uniformed officers are going to be equipped with the body cam starting next week?
Yes, sir. And as long as there's a couple minor hardware issues with 2 cars, I believe we can get fixed by next week. And as long as that happens, everybody in a uniform on the street will have one.
Okay.
Hi, it's Margie. Can I add one last comment, please?
Go ahead, Margie. Robin's got a dog muted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I forgot this on the budget. I sure wished that the restricted parks account with the $750,000 would be included in the budget materials, because I believe we could allocate some expenditures out of that fund that are now showing spending out of the capital reserve fund or even the general fund. So I hope next year that fund will be incorporated in the annual budget.
Margie, I think we agreed that we would include it in the budget packet next year. Christine agreed to that. And I do believe we authorized in our capital review $90,000 of expenditure from the Parks Fund for the parks equipment that they were requesting.
Okay. Then also, when you had your meeting with the folks over at Graystone, was there any indication of when they're going to pay that $1 million that they promised the township for approving the neighborhood improvement district?
Margie, they owe that money when the park is dedicated, not before. It's in the conditional use agreement from 2007.
Well, I know, but the additional $1 million was not negotiated with us until the approval process for the NID.
Yes, and that in the agreement, the money is not to be given to us till the park is dedicated.
Okay, and is there any indication of when that, or estimation of when that's going to happen?
Not a bit. They still have 2 more dams to reconstruct and 6 miles of trails to develop. So that could be next year or 2022.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Doc White, nothing today? Last day of the year to talk. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Hugh now, unless there's somebody else who has something to talk about.
I'll make the motion. We adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
And I wish everybody a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hugh. I'll second your motion. Same to everyone else.
Okay.
Good night,
all right,
everyone.
all we need to do is all say aye at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Aye. I'll even say it.
Happy holidays, everybody.
All right, everybody, take care of yourselves for the rest of this year. Looking forward to seeing you in 2021.
Yep, stay safe.
All right, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.